Hi everybody, welcome to our second video lesson. Today's lesson is on what I call conscious questioning, and this is something we're specifically going to talk about what you do when you read. To explain it a little bit, I want you to think about the last time you walked somewhere where you knew where you were going. Maybe you walked to school this morning, or maybe you walked to a friend's house over the past few days. Chances are, if it's someplace you're familiar with, you didn't think about what you had to do. Your feet and your brain know the way to go. You made a right here, you made a left here, and you ended up where you needed to go without consulting a map or thinking about it. That's because you're familiar with it. Our brain kind of functions the same way when we read. We already know the letters CH together produce the ch sound, or SH makes the sh sound. So every time we see those letters together, we don't have to worry about exactly what they mean. We automatically know, and our brain makes sense of it. But there are many other things that our brain does. One of the things it does when we read is it asks questions about what we're reading. Authors will sometimes give us a little bit of information, or they'll try to build suspense, and so we're constantly paying attention to what we know, what we don't know, and what we're learning while we read. Now, sometimes when we start to read something that's more challenging or more difficult, we'll start to find that questions pile up. There'll be a whole lot of things we don't know, and all of a sudden the brain will start to kind of shut down. Now, if we don't pay attention to the questions, we end up doing things like reading 2 or 3 pages and not knowing what we just read, or reading a paragraph and reading it again and reading it again, and I keep reading this paragraph and I still don't know what it says. Often that's because our brain has so many questions it's overloaded, but we're so used to it working on its own, the same way as when we walk to someplace familiar, that we don't think to pay attention. And so what you need to practice when that happens is you have to be conscious. You have to pay attention to the questions your brain is asking and make sure that you can find the answers. So what we're going to practice today is we're going to practice what we call conscious questioning when we read. It has kind of 3 stages, I guess you could say. One of them is reading carefully. The second one is paying attention to what you don't know and writing the questions down, like you can put it in the margins. And then the third thing you need to do is you need to be aware and look for answers. So if you have a question about, somebody walks in and you don't find out the character's name, then you want to pay attention to dialogue. And if a character says something about that character, they might use his name. So you need to be very attentive to the answers you're getting. Sometimes once we have a lot of questions, we fail to realize that we're actually getting answers. We're just not putting it together. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to model conscious questioning for you. I'm going to do it with the story Just Lather, That's All. Now you can choose to look at your copy of Just Lather, That's All, but if you do, the format is different. You have more words on the page than I do right here. And of course, I'm going to highlight and make comments on the side, but you don't have to do that. You can, you're going to underline and you can write whatever it is that you need to write in the margin. So I'm going to practice conscious questioning. I'm going to show you how to do it with the story, and then I want you, please, for homework, to finish reading the story and to continue to mark places where you have questions and places where you find answers. So I'll model that for you now, and here's the story, Just Lather, That's All. It's a very suspenseful story, and I find that students often enjoy it, especially the ending. So here we go. He said nothing when he entered. So right there we're going to stop, and it's the first sentence, and often in a story you get information up front and right away. In this case, we get no information. So my question is, who is the he that entered? And who is the narrator? So, he said nothing when he entered. I was passing the best of my razors back and forth on a strop. Now here you see a number. Oh, and look, when I highlight it, it tells me the definition. A leather strap used to sharpen a razor. Okay, so there's somebody sharpening a razor in the store. Of course, we're wondering maybe, why is this person sharpening a razor? And it's the narrator. Okay, so we'll keep going. He said nothing when he entered. I was passing... Oops, sorry. He said nothing when he entered. I was passing the best of my razors back and forth on a strop. When I recognized him, I started to tremble, but he didn't notice. And right there, trembling is a sign of fear. So, of course, the question is, why is the narrator afraid? Why is the man afraid? Why is the narrator afraid of the man who came in? And trembling is a sign of serious fear. It's a sign that he's definitely scared. So that's a question that we have while we read. When I recognized him, I started to tremble, but he didn't notice. Hoping to conceal my emotion, I continued sharpening the razor. I tested on the meat of my thumb and then held it up to the light. At that moment, he took off the bullet-studded belt that his gun holster dangled from. He hung it up on a wall and placed his military cap over it. Then he turned to me, loosening the knot of his tie, and said, "It's hot as hell. Give me a shave." He sat in the chair. So we just got two answers. We now know that the general, well, we know he's a military man. He's a bullet-studded gun and a military cap. Okay? So the man who walked in is military, and we know that he's talking to the narrator and he says, "Give me a shave." So the narrator, the reason he's sharpening the razor must be because he's a barber. Now, please do make these notes yourself too. It's good practice. Again, you don't have to type. You can be handwriting, and as we go, you can feel free to pause the recording and the video at any time. That would be fun. So this person walks in and says, he turned to me, loosening the knot of his tie, and says, "It's hot as hell. Give me a shave." He sat in the chair. I estimated he had a 4-day beard. The 4 days taken up by the latest expedition in search of our troops. So again, he's military and they were hunting for troops. His face seemed reddened, burned by the sun. Carefully, I began to prepare the soap. I cut off a few slices, dropped them in the cup, mixed in a bit of warm water, and began to stir with a brush. Immediately, the foam began to rise. The other boys in the group should have this much beard, too. I continued stirring the lather. But we did all right, you know. We got them. Oh, hold on. Next page, sorry. But we did all right, you know. We got the main ones. We brought back some dead, and we've got some others still alive. But pretty soon, they'll all be dead. How many did you catch? 14. We had to go pretty deep into the woods to find them. But we'll get even. Not even one of them comes out alive. Not one. Nah, maybe it's the way I'm reading it, but it sounds very much like he doesn't want them to be alive. So if these are our troops, is what it said before, they were hunting for our troops, why doesn't the military guy want them to live? You know, the barber said on the previous page, "In the search of our troops." So I don't understand why not one of them comes out of this alive. It sounds like General Torres wants them to die. It's confusing to me. So here we go. He leaned back on the chair when he saw me with a lather-covered brush in my hand. I still had to put the sheet on him. No doubt about it, I was upset. Okay. Where am I? Here I am. So he's upset. Why? So this military guy finds the troops, wants them dead, and that upsets the barber. So it makes me question what's going on with the barber and the general, that one wants them dead and one wants them alive. Okay, so I'm actually going to stop there, and I'm going to tell you that you need to read very closely, finish reading the story, pay attention to any questions that you might have as you read, write them down, highlight with a pen or pencil, write your question down, and as you start to find answers, please put those down too. Please read the story, pay attention, and make notes, and I will see you in the next class with your notes. Thank you.